I'm Alex Michaels. We have local reaction and a law enforcement expert to weigh in on police reform. But let's begin with Marla Tejas with the emotional moments from inside that courtroom. Marla.
It has been more than 2 months since Derek Chauvin was convicted of killing George Floyd. Before learning his fate today, the court heard from Floyd family members, even Chauvin himself. Throughout it all, the 45-year-old Chauvin showed hardly any emotion.
I'm not basing my sentence also on public opinion.
Judge Peter Cahill addressing a masked Derek Chauvin before sentencing the former Minneapolis police officer to 22.5 years behind bars for his second-degree unintentional murder conviction in the death of George Floyd.
The court commits you to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 270 months.
Chauvin, stoic, could be out in 15 years with good behavior. The sentence inside the Hennepin County courtroom in Minneapolis coming after almost an hour of sometimes tearful impact statements.
My niece Gianna, she needs closure.
Floyd's brother Philonis pleading with the judge for the maximum 30-plus year sentence the prosecution was hoping for.
My family and I have been given a life sentence.
Brother Terrence with a question for Chauvin about those 9.5 minutes the world witnessed.
What was going through your head when you had your knee on my brother's neck?
And in a video, Floyd's 7-year-old daughter Gianna with a message for her father.
I miss you and I love you.
For the first time, Chauvin's mother speaking publicly about her son, who she calls a good man.
The public will never know the loving and caring man he is.
The final word going to Chauvin himself, a rare maskless moment in which he explains because of the pending civil rights lawsuit against him, he can't say much.
I do want to give my condolences to the Floyd family.
But then in a bizarre twist, Chauvin hints at more to come.
There's going to be some other information in the future that would be of interest, and I hope things will give you some peace of mind.
In the meantime, is there peace for the Floyd family? They say their mission for justice isn't over.
We're still fighting. Reverend Al always said, keep fighting. And that's something I can't stop.
The judge did grant Chauvin 199 days credit, time served, but the sentence also prohibits Chauvin from ever owning a firearm or ammunition. And also, upon being released, he is ordered to register as a predatory offender. When asked about this sentence today, President Biden said it, quote, seems to be appropriate. Alex, Christine.
All right, let's continue our team coverage now. Community activists here in Los Angeles have a lot to say about that sentencing.
Phil Schuman has been talking to them. He joined us live from South LA. Phil.
Well, was this sentence tough enough, long enough? Depends on your perspective, Alex and Christine. I spoke with Melina Abdullah, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. We're in front of a Black Lives Matter mural on Jefferson. She felt that this was a strong message, but it wasn't justice. She's one of the strongest voices in our community for police reform and accountability.
We're also remembering that justice has not been won. Right? And that this is also a day of mourning, that it's also a day when, if you watched the sentencing hearings, that you watched Black family mourn the loss of George Floyd. You watched his daughter talk about how she'll miss her father helping her brush her teeth. And then we witnessed George Floyd's murderer. We witnessed Derek Chauvin offer condolences but no accountability. We witnessed his mother act as if her son's life needed to be centered rather than the life of the Black father who was murdered. And so it's a stark reminder that white supremacy runs deep in this country.
Strong, provocative words from Melina Abdullah, as always. Other community activists, community leaders I spoke with here, Alex and Christine, had similar reactions to the family of George Floyd, that they wish the sentence had been longer. They wouldn't go so far as to agree with George Floyd's brothers, or one of them who called it a slap on the wrist. They did say it was a significant statement that police will be and should be held accountable. Live in South LA, I'm Phil Schuman. Alex, Christine.
Phil, does Melina ever take a moment to say we have taken a step forward? The fact that there was a conviction, the fact that this is more time than anybody's ever had in this sort of situation?
Not really. Not really. She's constantly pressing forward, wanting more, and has been consistent on that and said had this sentence been much lower, remember, the sentence could have been as low as 12.5 years, but the judge added 10 years for that, quote, cruelty and abuse of authority as a police officer. She made a veiled threat that if this had been a lighter sentence, we could be looking at more civil unrest.
All right, Phil, well, we didn't see that, so we are going to move the conversation forward. You've been talking to a lot of people out in the community. We're going to continue our conversation right here.
Yeah, and to understand the impact today's sentencing may have on law enforcement and police reform, we're joined now by Marshal McClain.
McClain is on the board of directors for the Peace Officers Research Association. Officer, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So we should note that you are an LAX officer and president of the LA Airport Peace Officers Association. What's your reaction to the sentencing as we look toward furthering the conversation moving forward?
Well, I don't know all of the details of the guidelines. 22 years or 22 and a half years is definitely the longest ever. So I do agree that is something to note. There are a lot of provocative statements being made about if you don't do what we say or what we want, we'll continue to have civil unrest. And I don't think that's the way to go. I can speak to what we're doing here in California. PORAC, the Peace Officers Research Association of California, has been around since 1953. In 1959, just 6 years after that, we actually pushed forward with starting POST, which is the Peace Officer Standard and Training in California. With that, there's currently Senate Bill 2, which we're in talks with the author, Senator Bradford, on right now, which would be a way to actually decertify bad cops. I don't think that you're going to find any police officer that wants to work with bad cops. And that's one of those little knocks that continually is pushed around, that we shield bad cops or that police unions don't do their part. That's why I wanted to note that PORAC is an association of police associations representing over 77,000 police and deputy sheriffs in the state of California. And this group actually started POST, which is the standard. So, our concern is constantly having reform being pushed forward without police officers being able to help that process. Reform's not a bad word. We've been in a constant state of reform. So when you're talking about decertifying bad cops, all we want is a process that doesn't, create some type of double jeopardy situation, that a police officer still has his constitutional rights to be able to defend themselves. So we're hoping that happens, and California will finally have a way to decertify bad police officers. The other thing we're doing is called United for Positive Reform, where we can reach out to other groups such as the NFL police officer, the NFL, their PA, their association, the NBA as well. And we could join together on ways that we can talk to the community. And a couple of our police officers, as well as their families, actually took part in a documentary that's actually going to be at the Cannes Film Festival next month.
Can we ask
by a director.
Can we ask you some more questions here?
Sure.
Yeah, Alex, you want to go?
Sure. No, just I'll just button up on the decertification thing. So Steve Bradford is a state senator from Southern California. He's the chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus. He has this SB 10. So are you saying that you're in favor of the bill? Because the criticism of that bill from some in law enforcement is that they don't feel like they have enough of a voice in that process. Are you saying that you are consulting with them, you do have a voice in it, and you're supportive of it?
We're supportive of the bill, but not in its current form. There's some amendments that need to happen. One is which I spoke to earlier, in terms of you can't create a double jeopardy situation where a police officer has been found not guilty in a court of law, and then you go and start another process that is going to strip him of their duties to be able to be a police officer in the state. So we want a comprehensive process. We do want everybody at the table to be able to come with something that we can all put our arms around and agree to. That's the best way to go forward.
All right, Officer Marshal McClain, we appreciate your perspective, and thank you for joining us on this important day.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
A reminder, the Fox 11 documentary series Rising Up traces George Floyd's death and the roots of last year's social unrest here in Southern